Joining me now is Kevin Frey, Washington correspondent for Spectrum News New York 1. Kevin, good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Good morning.
So what did you make of this latest missive from Musk after what appeared to be several deep cuts and wide cuts across several agencies, probationary employees? Now they're going after non-essential workers, and now it appears the entire federal workforce.
Right. I mean, it's just another moment of chaos for a lot of these federal workers. I was texting with one last night, and she said that this is incredibly stressful and that her anxiety is at, quote, a different level because of this. And she was already concerned based on the various emails and orders they were getting, and this just adds another element to that. The thing that's rather remarkable that you just kind of touched on was the fact that this is now creating this sort of the potential for internal fighting within the administration, where you have different fiefdoms basically pushing back on Elon Musk. So you have various factions of the Trump loyalists, essentially, that are running these various agencies, basically saying, you know what, don't comply with what Elon Musk is doing. And does that set up potential fights down the road is something I would be keeping an eye on. The other component about this that is quite interesting is the fact that this is well, it's sending kind of a message to these workers that, look, your job should be very simply a list of 5 bullet points. And what are you doing to comply with that? And it's just not clear that
you need to have an elevator pitch for your last weeks of work. What's interesting is veteran pollster and communication strategist Frank Luntz also talked about some of these cuts and the risk that the Trump administration is facing from the public as some of these attacks on the federal workforce seem to mount daily. I want to play what he said and get your response to it.
The overall objectives and the goals and the general policies behind what's been happening is approved of. The way it's being communicated to the American people, no, they don't want a chainsaw brought to the government. They don't want this seeming meanness as part of public policy. They do want the objectives. They do want less waste, less fraud, and most importantly, less corruption. And so they back the president and his administration generically on what he's trying to do. But the language and the communication, the messaging is over the top.
Is over the top. I mean, what essentially do you think is the mandate from the American people based on your reporting? And how does that potentially jibe with the way that Musk is going about this?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, this is where the rubber meets the road, right? I mean, like, you talk in conceptual, you campaign on conceptual, that there's all this waste, fraud, and abuse. But when you start actually, like, impacting people's lives and cutting services and reducing, the workforce and putting people in this kind of traumatizing position, that creates the potential for political backlash, which is what we're seeing at some of these town halls over the last few days, where members of the American public, now whether or not this becomes replicated and it actually is kind of a Tea Party sort of response, or if this is just a few select cases, remains to be seen. But this creates the environment where you can see pushback from the American public. And Democrats, I should say, are also kind of latching on to this. Luntz just kind of hit on something that Senator Schumer has been making one of his main pitches, which is that rather than going with a scalpel, they're coming with a meat cleaver. And that creates the possibility of people getting hurt in the process. And you can see Democrats kind of ramping up that messaging.
And ultimately, the decision maker might end up being the judicial system, with many of these actions in the courts, and even one Republican lawmaker telling his constituents over the weekend, look, the courts are going to decide this in the end.
And that got a lot of pushback because they're like, aren't you one of the 3 branches of government? Shouldn't you be providing some of the backlash here?
Exactly. Not over yet. Kevin Frey, we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Coming up